If you're new to government contracting or you're trying to win your next government contract and you need clear step-by-step strategies to win these government contracts, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly step-by-step how I've been able to help thousands of businesses enter the government market and win government contracts in 5 simple steps. My name is Desmond Acha and I've helped thousands of businesses enter the government market. We've built a government contracting software and just overall helped a lot of businesses win government contracts. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the 5 steps that I use to help you win these government contracts. And yeah, so the 5 steps are very simple, right? I'm going to first give you the 5 steps. I'm going to call them pillars, okay? So there's 5 main pillars, and inside each pillar, there's micro steps inside of it. So here are the 5 pillars first, and the remainder of the video, we're going to go through each pillar and cover all the steps of that particular pillar, okay? The first pillar is getting contract ready. Okay, being contract ready simply means that you are ready to do business with the government from a business structure standpoint. The second pillar is finding government contracts to bid. As a business owner, you must find opportunity, not contracts, finding opportunity. So knowing the difference between a contract and an opportunity is very important. The third pillar is going to be finding partners and subcontractors to work with. Are you doing it yourself or are you working with a partner or a subcontractor? Knowing how to navigate that is very important. The fourth step is proposal writing. After you found the contract, if you decide that you want to work on this contract, you're either gonna write a proposal or not bid the contract. So proposal writing is a very important step because that's how you submit your your offer to the government is through a proposal. And the fifth step is winning and fulfilling the contract. After you win the contract, you still have to fulfill the contract. So it's very important to know how to navigate those things. And then I have a secret 6th step and I will tell you at the end of the video. Okay. So those are the main 5 steps. Main 5 pillars. Let's cover the first pillar, which is getting contract ready. Okay. So to be contract ready simply means that you are literally ready to do business with the government, right? So how do we become contract ready? It's really simple. The first step is to have a legal business. Okay, you gotta have a business if you don't business with the government. So create an LLC, a sole proprietorship, S corp, whatever you want to create a business. There's so many videos on YouTube, everywhere to know how to create a business. Just look up in your state, create a business in Georgia, create a business in California, right? And they'll tell you exactly step by step how to create your company. After you create your company, you need to go to the IRS and get an EIN number. Okay, this EIN number is a social security number for your business. You gotta have it, okay? Once you have this business entity created, it's very important that if you're doing federal contracts, you have a physical address. So make sure that the company address is a physical address, because if it's a virtual address, they're not gonna give you your SAM registration. So please make sure that when you register your company, you have a physical address. And also, when you are creating the company name, it's very important that you have a general business name, because if you're doing government contracts, you're probably going to be pivoting and doing different types of contracts. So having a general business name allows you to pursue a lot of different contracts. And when I say general, I mean things like ABC Solutions, ABC Enterprises, ABC Ventures, right? These are typically general business names. If your company name is ABC Transportation, ABC Construction, ABC IT Services, you're locking yourself in those individual industries, okay? Now, if you already have a business and that's what it is, you can honestly just keep it and use it, or create a DBA, and a DBA is a nickname, doing business as. So your company can be ABC Transportation, DBA, ABC Enterprises. So ABC Transportation is doing business as ABC Enterprises. You follow me? So step 1 is to have a company, okay? So when creating your company, have a general business name and use a physical address. That way the next steps are easier for you. So after your company is set up and you have your EIN number, the next step is to create a business bank account. Go to a local bank and create an account, because you're gonna need to have a business bank account for them to send money to, right? You wanna get paid, so have a business bank account, because that's they're gonna require that when you're creating your SAM registration. So to essentially do business with the government, you gotta have a company. With your company, you gotta have a physical address and a bank account, okay? With those 3 things, company, physical address, bank account, you can do business with the state government, because there's state government contracts and there's federal government contracts. At the state level, all they require is a business, right? If you're doing federal contracts, they require a business and SAM.gov, okay? So when you have your company set up, physical address, bank account information, you can start doing state government contracts. If you're doing federal government contracts, you want to add a SAM.gov registration on that particular list of to-dos. Then once you have your SAM registration, you can start doing federal contracts. And at that point, you should literally start bidding on contracts, okay? Once you have your company set up and you're in SAM.gov, start looking for contracts. But before we proceed to the next pillar, if you qualify for certifications, you're a women-owned business, you're a veteran, you're a minority, you're in the hub zone, right? I highly recommend that you apply for your certifications. Now, don't let the application process have you sitting there doing nothing. Still go pursue contracts. Just because you have a certification does not mean that it's required to do business with the government. It is not. It is simply a bonus, okay? So, if you qualify, use your certification to win more contracts. If you don't qualify, skip that step and go pursue contracts. So the first pillar is to get contract ready. And to be contract ready, all you need is a company, a physical address, and a bank account. And with those three things, you can do state government contracts. If you want to do federal government contracts, you need a company, physical address, bank account, and a SAM registration, which is the fourth thing, okay? With these four things right here, you can do federal and state government contracts. Now, there are some bonus things that you can add to be officially contract ready, and that would be things like having a website. If you have your website, it makes it easier for people to find you, makes it easier for the government to go look you up and see that you're a real business, right? It's easier for people to find you if you have a real website, especially if you're working with subcontractors. If you call the company to get a quote, they'll probably want to look up who you are, right? So to go to your website, if you don't have a website, they might not want to do business with you. So having a website is very, very important because you need a digital presence. We are in the age of digital. You need a digital presence. So having a website is very important. Having a professional email is also very important. Is it required? No. Does it make you look good? Yes, right? But it's not required. The only requirement to do business with the government is a company. That's it, okay? That's for state contracts. If you're doing federal, it's a company and SAM.gov. Those are the only two requirements to do business with the government. So please do not overwhelm yourself by doing all these different steps. All you need is a company and SAM.gov registration, and you can do government contracts. Do not procrastinate because you got to get your website, got to apply for this certification, got to do this, got to do that. No, that's all procrastination tactics. So the first pillar is to get contract ready. So once you are contract ready, the next pillar, which is now to find contracts to bid, okay? Now this is where a lot of people get stuck because they don't know what is a good contract. So there's two things. There's a contract and there's an opportunity. You want to pursue opportunities, not contracts. And a contract is a random contract you found online. Whether it's a state contract or a federal contract, it's a random contract that you found online. For example, if you find a contract to go build a spaceship and you are a small business with no money, no resources, no nothing. That's a contract. That is not an opportunity. An opportunity is specifically designed for you, right? So an opportunity could be, let's say you are a small business, zero experience, just want to start. An opportunity could be, it's a landscaping contract in your backyard where the government needs landscaping services once a month and they want the lowest price. The proposal is relatively straightforward, it's not complicated. They don't care about your experience, they mainly want the lowest price. That's probably an opportunity because you have a higher probability of winning that contract versus the building a spaceship. So an opportunity is simply a contract that is simple, straightforward, and gives you a higher probability of winning. So you have to be able to analyze these contracts and find opportunities, because if you're not finding opportunities, you'll always run into challenges, right? And some of the challenges could be you can't get a quote fast enough, you don't have the experience, you cannot find a subcontractor, you don't know how to write the proposal, you cannot get the references that you need, right? A lot of things that you don't have that makes it harder for you to be able to pursue this contract. So that is not a contract. That is not an opportunity, that's a contract. So to be able to find opportunities, you must know what you are doing, okay? I don't care how many courses you've bought, how many challenges you've done. If you don't know how to analyze a contract and determine if it's an opportunity or a government contract, you're probably gonna lose a lot of bids. You will definitely submit the bids, you will be doing the work, but you're going to keep losing because you're bidding on contracts and not opportunities. So it's very important to know how to identify opportunities, okay? That's a very important step because everything happens after you find the contract. Because once your company is set up, you gotta go find a contract. Everything starts in government contracting when you find a contract to bid, because the contract you identify will determine the next steps. And if you're losing bids, you're not following through, it's not going from you find the bid to you submitting and you winning, it's because you're bidding on the wrong contract. So learn how to identify opportunities and not contracts. I'll probably create later videos on how to find opportunities versus contracts. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, okay? But overall, the second pillar is being able to find opportunities that you can pursue. Now, there's two places to find contracts. There's SAM.gov. SAM.gov is only for federal contracts. Then there's state contracts, state and local contracts. So to find these contracts, if you're doing federal contracts, literally go to SAM.gov. If you're doing state contracts, go to Google and look up your location and add the word procurement. Texas, procurement. California, procurement. Miami, procurement. Atlanta, procurement. Baltimore City, procurement. Baltimore County, procurement. Literally search your location and add the word procurement, and it would take you to the website where the government is posting these contracts. And when you go there, whether it's your local state website or the federal government SAM.gov, you will see contracts that you have to sift through to find opportunities. You will see thousands of contracts, but there are only a few opportunities that align with you, your experience, your strategy, your approach, right? Because again, the opportunities you pursue is determined by where you are in your business, because opportunities for me are different than from you. You know what I'm saying? Because you're in a different place than I am. You have a different strategy than I do, right? Different businesses, different locations, different strengths, different weaknesses. So that's why everybody has a different criteria to determine what an opportunity is for them. You can't teach this, but if we teach you how to think, you will then know how to analyze each opportunity versus me saying, hey, this is an opportunity. Then you're gonna say, Desmond, what made this an opportunity? That's to explain that, right? So my job with this channel is to teach you how to think, so that as you find these contracts, you can determine, is this an opportunity or is this a contract? Because opportunities, you have a higher probability of winning. It's called P-win, right? P-W-I-N, probability of winning. You want to make sure you have a higher probability of winning before you exert energy and effort into this contract. For me, like, I don't bid a contract unless I know for a fact I have a higher probability of winning. Okay, because I'm gonna look at it and ask a certain amount of questions to determine, is this worth pursuing? A lot of you guys just bid random contracts and hope you win. You probably won't win, and that's the problem. You're buying all these programs, buying all of these things right here. They're teaching you the stuff, and that's phenomenal. You know the information, but you don't have the strategy. Okay, you cannot get strategy from a course. Somebody has to literally talk to you and tell you exactly what to do for your particular situation, because what might work for this person is probably not going to work for you. So having that personalized strategy is very important. You can't teach that. You can't buy that from the course, okay? So you must know the difference between an opportunity and a contract. And don't just search for random stuff. Have a strategy. You want to go in with a strategy. Like, what's your strategy? What are you looking for? Are you looking for business that are easy to put together? Or you look for business that are easy to win? Right? What's your criteria when searching for these contracts? So when you find this contract, right, let's move on to the third pillar, is partners and subcontractors. Before we even go there, when you find the contract, you must ask yourself, what's my strategy with this bid? Okay? Before you determine anything else, ask yourself, what's my approach with this contract? Am I doing it myself, or am I working with a subcontractor? Right? Or am I just buying and reselling a product? If you're buying and reselling a product, okay, fine. Call the vendor, get a quote, add your profit on top, submit the bid. Cool, right? But if it's a service contract, you have to ask yourself, am I doing this contract myself? Or am I working with a subcontractor? Or am I doing both? Am I doing some of it and subbing out some of it? The problem is, you guys want to just simply find a contract, call the vendor, get a quote, add profit on top, submit the bid, and win, and then have them do all the work. Can that work? Absolutely. Are you gonna be able to build a sustainable business doing that? Probably not, okay? So it's very important to understand, okay, what's my strategy? What's my approach, right? What puts me in the best position to win this contract? Because there are times where you might find a contract where, let's just do an example, landscaping, right? You find a landscaping contract, it sounds so easy. I'm gonna call the subcontractor, get a quote, add my profit on top, and submit the bid. If you win the contract, you call the landscaping company, they do all the work. That's best case scenario. Now think about this. Because it's landscaping, it's easy to do, which means other landscaping companies in the same area are probably gonna bid that contract. So if the price for the contract is $20,000, right? That's what they quoted you. Well, that local landscaping company will probably quote for $20,000. You see what I'm saying? So you get your quote for $20,000, add 10,000 on top. Now you're at 30,000, right? That's market price plus your profit is now 30,000. Well, the other landscaping companies down the road, they're also bidding the contract. They'll probably bid 19, 20, 21, 22,000. You see what I'm saying? So because you're competing with other businesses in the same industry, you might lose that contract. So what if your approach is, I'm gonna call these businesses to get a quote from them and see like around where they're gonna be at. But honestly, it will be easy for me to just hire somebody, get a lawnmower, and just have my staff go do it themselves and subcontract a portion of the work. So now you say, well, if I hire, a staff member to go out there and do this, it will be this much, equipment cost is this much. And if I actually win 10 more landscaping contracts, I can actually quote the contract at $18,000, lower than market price, but I'm fulfilling it for 13, I still make 5. And I can now go win 10 more landscaping contracts to make bigger profits. And now you're doing everything in-house. You see what I'm saying? That's just one strategy. Another one could just hire a sub. You see what I'm saying? So there are a lot of different ways to approach these contracts. But you must ask yourself, what's the best way to position myself to win this contract, considering all the factors? The competition, the competitive landscape. Is it the lowest price or best value contract? How much profit do I want to make on this contract? What's the ease of fulfilling this contract? What's the government requiring? There's a lot of things to consider before you actually start working on the bid. But a lot of you guys just go find these contracts, call the vendor, get a quote, throw a profit on top, and you keep losing the contract. Why is that? You're literally competing with businesses in the same industry, and you think that you're gonna literally just call the company and just throw profit on top and just beat them? No! You're probably gonna lose the contract. I've spoken to so many people that they've submitted 30, 40, 50, 60, even 100 bids and not won any. They keep losing. Why do you keep losing? The pricing wrong. They have the wrong strategy. They just think that I'm gonna go find a contract, call a vendor, get a quote, add a profit on top, and be the middleman. Okay, let's see how that's working. Okay, I need to move on. It's too much on this topic. But ultimately, the third pillar is partners and subcontractors, right? Because when you find a contract, you have to ask yourself, am I gonna do it myself? Am I gonna work with a company? Or it's gonna be both. I'll do some and they do some, right? If you're doing it yourself, perfect. Write the proposal, submit the bid. If you're gonna be working with a vendor, right? Obviously, you gotta pick up the phone and call the vendor, communicate with them, share the scopes of work, and so on. Eventually get a quote and then write your proposal. The fourth pillar is proposal writing. Now, a lot of you guys use ChatGPT to write your proposals. That's totally fine. I do it too. But there's a way to go about writing your proposals, right? But to write the best proposal, it comes down to understanding these 3 criteria. When the government puts a contract out there, there's 3 important sections that you must read and understand. The first is the scope of work. The scope of work is always going to tell you what the contract is for, what the government wants. That's the scope of work. The second is the instructions. The instructions outline exactly step by step how the government wants you to respond with your proposal. And the third is the evaluation criteria. The evaluation tells you how the government is going to evaluate you. So let's say the scope of work is, we need landscaping services once a month at this location. That's the scope of work. The instructions is going to be, your proposal content should include a cover letter, executive summary, experience, and pricing, right? That's literally the instructions that they want you to follow. Cover page, table of contents, executive summary, past performance, pricing. Simple, right? That's your instructions. And the evaluation criteria tells you how the government will evaluate your bid. So they'll either evaluate your bid based on best value or lowest price. Best value is they're gonna look at all the proposals and see who gives them the best value. Even if it's more expensive, you can still win the contract. Lowest price contract means that it's gonna be lowest price. It's called LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable, right? If you're the lowest price, you're gonna win. So some contracts are gonna be based on best value and some are gonna be based on lowest price. So understanding what the government wants is very important in creating your strategy to pursue that particular contract. So when you find a contract, read those 3 sections. What's the scope of work? Can you do the job? Okay, perfect, I can do the job. If you can't do the job, find somebody that can. Perfect, I found somebody that can do the project. Perfect. Step 2, instructions. Can I follow all the instructions? Can I give the government exactly what they want? Can I write an executive summary? Can I provide the past performance? Can I give them the best pricing? Right? And then the third is the evaluation criteria. How is the government going to evaluate me? Is it going to be based on price or based on value proposition? If it's based on price, you got to be the lowest price, which means you got to negotiate really good prices. If it's based on value proposition, you have to package your bid in a way that stands out and separates yourself from the packs. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to do another video on proposal writing because again, it'll be just a lot to cover in this particular video, but it's very important to understand that every proposal that you work on, there's literally going to be a scope of work, instructions and evaluation criteria, and it's up to you to be able to fulfill the scope of work, follow all the instructions, and exceed the evaluation criteria. Because if you do those three things, you position yourself to win the contract. And it also goes back to your ability to find the right contracts, because if you're finding contracts and you're not able to submit the bid, you're probably looking at contracts and not opportunities. But when you find an opportunity, you're able to do everything that's required to submit the bid and actually win because you found an opportunity. You follow me? So the fourth pillar is being able to write the best proposals that give you a high probability of winning. And the fifth and final pillar is winning the contract and fulfilling the contract. After you submit the bid, right? My recommendation is move on to the next bid. Start working on the next contract because you don't know how long it's going to take for the government to evaluate your bid and reward you the contract. So rather than sit and wait, go find the next opportunity and start working on those. But assuming that they send you an email or they gave you a call, probably an email, saying, hey, you won the contract. Now it's time to fulfill the contract. So winning is the easy part. Literally, winning is the easy part. Fulfilling, that's where the real work starts, right? So when you win the contract, now if you need capital to fulfill the contract, there's two ways to get capital, right? If it's a product contract, there's something called purchase order factoring. And if it's a service contract, there's invoice factoring. So purchase order factoring is where they give you money up front and then you use that money to buy products and then sell the services to the government, right? Well, first of all, the government is not giving you the money up front. When it comes to government contracting, you get paid after you deliver the services. After, not before, after you deliver the services. So it's very important that before you even go into a bid, ask yourself, how am I going to fulfill this contract should I win this contract? Because if you're working with a sub, okay, the sub will invoice you, right? Then you just pay the sub. You have to negotiate with them. If you're self-fulfilling this contract, you need capital because you either got to buy the products or you start the project before you get paid. But you must understand what to do when you win this contract. You literally, after you submit that bid, you should, in fact, before you submit a bid, start putting together a plan in place on how you're going to fulfill this contract. Because the moment you win, the clock starts ticking. And we've had a lot of different scenarios in the past where we won contracts and all hell broke loose and we had to literally find alternative solutions to fulfilling these contracts. I have a lot of stories to share and we'll be sharing it, over the next few months and years as we go, right? But winning is just debating. Fulfillment is where the money is made. If you need capital, use factoring services to fulfill the contract. But once you submit the bid, you win the contract, you got to do the job, right? So find creative ways to fulfill the project to make sure that you get paid, because if you don't fulfill the project, you're not going to get paid, okay? So when you win the contract, there's a few things you want to do. One, I always request a debrief meeting, even if I won the contract, to know why I won or why I lost, right? Because if I won the contract, I want to know what I did to win. Now, sometimes it's self-explanatory. You were the lowest price. Okay, perfect, thank you, right? You won because you really like this right here. Perfect. In my next proposal, I'll do the same thing. But if you lost the contract, still request a debrief meeting and know why you lost. And most of the time, they'll tell you you were the highest price or you were non-compliant. And these are things that you can fix, okay? But overall though, right, I don't want to make this too long. This is just a high level overview of how to, do business with the government. 5 simple steps. Step 1, get contract ready. Get your company set up, register in SAM.gov, and that's legit. Okay, get your company set up, register in SAM.gov, you can start pursuing contracts. Pillar number 2, finding contracts to bid. When you're looking for contracts, there's 2 places to look. There's federal market and state market, right? Each of them have different requirements that you must follow. But when you're looking for contracts, you want to find opportunities with a high probability of winning, because you don't want to waste your time putting bids together that you're going to lose. So ask yourself, what's my probability of winning this contract? It's like a bid or no bid system, right? After you've determined that you want to pursue this contract, the 3rd pillar is to either, are you doing it yourself or you're working with a subcontractor? If you're doing it yourself, proceed to the 4th, which is proposal writing. But if you're working with a subcontractor, you must now go call vendors and talk to them about fulfilling the project with you. They'll give you a quote, you add your profit on top, and then you submit the bid, proceed to the next step, which is proposal writing. When you write the proposals, you want to obviously read the scope of work, the instructions, and the evaluation criteria. But when you are actually physically writing the proposal, you want to make sure that you follow the instructions and you follow the evaluation criteria. Then after you finish the proposal, you want to submit the bid, Once you win the contract, you must fulfill the contract. And once you win the contract, it's time to fulfill the contract. You simply have to do what you said you're going to do in your proposal. First, you do the onboarding with the government, sign all the documents, and take ownership of the contract. Once you have ownership, it's now up to you to deliver and fulfill the contract. And if there's any discrepancies while you're fulfilling it, it's very important that you try to solve it first before you go complaining to the government, okay? Because they're gonna say, well, you won the contract, you gotta fulfill it, you gotta figure it out. The government is giving you the contract because they need solutions. They don't need problems. Do not bring them problems, bring them solutions, okay? They want you to win and fulfill. They don't want you to win and struggle to fulfill. Because if you're struggling to fulfill, now they believe they made the wrong decision by giving you the contract. And then now it puts a bad taste in their mouth when it's time to do more business with you or to recompete. So it's very important that as you're bidding these opportunities, you are putting yourself in the best position to win the contract. And that goes back to your ability to find and identify the best opportunities to pursue. You want to pursue opportunities and not contracts. Find opportunities, not contracts. And opportunity is defined as a contract that is strategically positioned for you to win. Okay, it is designed for you. Everything that they're speaking about, the instructions, the evaluation criteria, the scope of work, it aligns with how you're going to do business. Okay. Let me end the video here, but overall though, those are the high-level view 5 steps of how to win government contracts. Get contract ready, find the best opportunities to pursue. If you need a partner, find a partner. If you don't need a partner, proceed to step 4, which is proposal writing. Write the proposal, submit the bid, win, and fulfill the project. Those are the 5 simple steps. In later videos, I'm going to go deeper in each of these individual steps to make sure you have a full understanding of how to bid these contracts. And my one takeaway for you today is this. Once you're contract ready, it's very important that you identify contracts with a high probability of winning. You have to find opportunities. Don't find contracts, find opportunities, okay? Because opportunities give you a higher probability of winning, and we are here to win contracts, not lose. And a lot of you guys keep losing contracts because you're bidding the wrong contracts. So get better at finding opportunities where you have a high probability of winning. And if you got some value from this video, click the subscribe button, like the video, and I'll keep posting videos. I've also built a software called Gavacha that teaches you everything step by step how to win the government contracts. You can start for free. Click the button down below to start your free trial in our software, and you can win contracts too with it, okay? I appreciate you guys, and I will see you on the next one. Come on.